On the morning of March 14, 1882, the body of Daniel Shuren was discovered lying face down in a drainage ditch along the Tralee-Dingle Road, roughly 3 miles outside Ballymullen, County Kerry. His skull had been crushed by repeated blows from a blunt instrument. His coat pockets had been turned inside out, yet curiously, a silver pocket watch worth several pounds still hung from his waistcoat chain. At first, the Royal Irish Constabulary labeled the killing a robbery gone wrong, but when officers examined the scene more closely, something far more disturbing emerged. Pressed deeply into the soft mud surrounding the body were dozens of footprints, far too many for a single attacker. This was not the work of one man, but a coordinated group. Then there was the final detail. Carved into a wooden fence post beside where Shuren fell were 2 letters, LL to many. The message seemed unmistakable. The Land League of Limerick had claimed another victim, but the truth behind Daniel Shuren's death would prove far more terrifying than a simple political assassination. What authorities uncovered over the next 18 months revealed a system of agrarian terror so organized, so deeply rooted in rural Irish life, that entire communities had become willing accomplices to murder. And Daniel Shuren was only the beginning. Before we uncover how County Kerry descended into a shadow war, make sure to subscribe to Hypnotic Histories and ring the notification bell so you never miss our explorations into history's darkest corners. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from mystery seekers around the world. Now, let's step back into Ireland in the 1880s, a land where soil meant survival and where men were willing to kill for it. The powder keg of post-famine Ireland to understand the violence that consumed Kerry. We must first understand Ireland in 1880, a nation still bleeding from wounds inflicted decades earlier. Between 1845 and 1852, the Great Famine killed 1 million people. Another million fled across the Atlantic. Those who remained inherited a country shaped by trauma, hunger, and injustice. The famine was not merely a natural disaster. It was magnified by a land system that treated Irish tenant farmers as disposable. By 1880, 3% of the population owned nearly all agricultural land. Many landlords were absentee English aristocrats who rarely set foot on their estates. Irish tenants worked soil their families had farmed for generations, but never owned. One missed rent payment, one bad harvest, or one landlord's whim could result in eviction. Bailiffs would arrive without warning. Families watched as their possessions were thrown into muddy roads. Their homes were often torn down before their eyes, deliberately destroyed so they could never return. County Kerry, with its rugged mountains, peat bog, and isolated farms, embodied this volatile system. These were tight-knit communities where grudges lasted generations, and where the law was not the law of courts, but the law of the landlord. The rise of the Land League in October 1879, Charles Stewart Parnell and Michael DeWitt founded the Irish National Land League. Their goals appeared modest: fair rent, fixity of tenure, free sale, the 3 Fs. At first, the movement relied on peaceful resistance, mass meetings, rent strikes, and political pressure, but it also introduced a powerful new weapon: social ostracism. In 1880, when Captain Charles Boycott, a land agent in County Mayo, attempted evictions, the League organized the entire community to shun him. No one worked his land. No one sold him food. No one spoke to him. The tactic worked so effectively that Boycott's name became a verb. But in County Kerry, this strategy metastasized into something far darker. Kerry's land system was especially feudal. Vast estates, like those of the Kenmare and Herbert families, dominated the countryside. But a new class had emerged: land grabbers. These were Irish Catholics who leased or purchased farms once held by evicted tenants. To the dispossessed, they were traitors. To landlords, convenient buffers. To radical Land League factions, legitimate targets. By early 1881, Kerry's Land League branches were increasingly influenced by secret societies: the Ribbon Men, Molly Maguires, and others who had long practiced nighttime intimidation. Now they used the League as cover. Threatening letters signed Captain Moonlight appeared. Cattle were maimed. Hayricks burned. Shots were fired through windows in the dead of night. The Royal Irish Constabulary was overwhelmed. One constable might be responsible for dozens of townlands. Everyone knew who was responsible, but no one would testify. The code of silence was absolute. Daniel Shuren. The perfect target. Daniel Shuren was 53 years old in 1882. He had risen from the lowest rung of rural society, a landless laborer, to become a prosperous farmer. In 1869, he leased 30 acres near Ballymullen. Through relentless work, he expanded his holdings to nearly 90 acres. But 40 of those acres had once belonged to the Moriarty family. When Patrick Moriarty fell behind on rent in 1878, he was evicted. The landlord offered the land to Shuren at a reduced rate. Shuren accepted. In doing so, he unknowingly signed his own death warrant. Land in Irish Catholic culture was not just property, it was identity, heritage, ancestral memory. The Moriartys had farmed that land for 3 generations. When Shuren took possession, he erased their name from soil. At Sunday Mass, Patrick Moriarty publicly declared that the land thief would answer to God and Kerry. The priest attempted to intervene, but the message spread. Threats followed. Land grabber was carved into Shuren's barn door. His eldest son was beaten by masked men. Shuren reported everything to Constable William Burke, stationed in Ballymullen. Burke documented every incident, but he was one man policing nearly 2,000 people, most of whom believed Shuren deserved whatever happened to him. Escalation. By January 1882, the intimidation turned brutal. On January 18th, Shuren's prize bull was found slaughtered in its stall. Its throat had been cut nearly to the bone. Written on the wall in blood were the words, "Next time it's you." Burke noted the precision. The lock had been picked, not broken. Multiple footprints surrounded the barn. This was planned. Neighbors claimed ignorance, but Burke knew better. Fresh mud on boots. Convenient excuses. Carefully rehearsed silence. By February, the boycott intensified. Shops refused service. Tradesmen turned him away. At church, people physically turned their backs. Shuren's children were attacked at school. The teacher claimed to see nothing. When Shuren hired outside laborers, they were beaten and driven out of Kerry. Burke wrote in his report, "Serious violence is inevitable unless intervention occurs." None came. The final warning on March 8th, glass shattered in the Shuren farmhouse. A stone landed inside with a note, "Leave by week's end or die." Outside stood 6 men unmasked. At their head was Thomas O'Sullivan, a blacksmith and known enforcer. "You have 3 days," O'Sullivan said. Shuren stood in his doorway with a shotgun. He refused. O'Sullivan set fire to the haystack. Murder on March 14th. Daniel Shuren rode out at dawn to post letters detailing months of threats and naming names. He never returned. His body was found that night, beaten, executed, surrounded by footprints, and carved nearby, LL. The conspiracy unravels. Detectives from Dublin arrived. Slowly, the truth emerged. The killing had been planned for weeks. 8 men ambushed Shuren. His letters were stolen and burned. The breakthrough came from Michael Flynn, a terrified 19-year-old lookout who couldn't live with what he'd witnessed. Arrests followed. Evidence mounted. A cudgel bearing blood traces was recovered from O'Sullivan's forge. Trial and aftermath. The trial shocked Ireland. O'Sullivan was convicted of murder and hanged. Others received long sentences. Kerry erupted in riots. Margaret Shuren fled with her children. Burke requested transfer. Flynn disappeared into exile. Legacy. Daniel Shuren's murder helped expose the machinery of agrarian terror. It forced reforms, but at terrible cost. It remains a chilling reminder of how communities justify violence, how silence enables murder, and how easily justice collapses when fear takes hold. History remembers heroes, but must also remember victims like Daniel Shuren, because forgetting makes repetition inevitable.